Of 2021, I sit at my computer staring at the submit screen for the PACE varsity track team interest form. One click. One click is all it would take to submit something that had the ability to change my life. In the tab right next to it, an empty Google Doc for the novel I hope to someday write sits there, idly. The only question that plagued my mind at that moment was, how was a novelist going to learn how to run? I'm Leah Negero, a sophomore here at PACE, a member of the PACE varsity track team, and hopefully a future best-selling novelist. I'm also a first-generation American, both of my parents being from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I love everything about my culture, the people, the traditions, the food, the places, all of it. And I'm so proud to say that Ethiopia has produced countless famous distance runners. Sadly, I am not one of them. It all began in the 5th grade. I hadn't ever done a sport, unless you count the 2 that I quit a couple weeks in, gymnastics and ballet. But when you're 6 years old and you don't know how to do a cartwheel, both of those felt like torment. So I just stuck to school and my novel, Cinderella's Revenge. That December, I did end up hitting the submit button for the PACE track team interest form, and I needed to do something I felt I was good at. I needed to write. For instance, I've never thrown away a piece of paper that I've written to a friend, a story, or anything that I've ever put effort into writing. It was like I was tracking my progress, hoping to see fluidity and improvement in my writing as time went on. So under 2022 New Year's resolutions, I wrote, "Don't quit track." Despite all of the resolutions that followed, like get better grades and step out of your comfort zone, I had absolutely no idea that it would be those 3 words that had the most impact for my motivation for running. I also had to do one thing to make sure I couldn't possibly ever back out. I bought all of the gear. I'm talking the track team pants, the track team shirts, the dry fit shirts, the spikes, the hoodies, all of it. I got this. No bone-breaking, shin-kicking, or bruising could possibly come out of track, right? So I had no idea that running in a straight line as hard and fast as you possibly can could be so hard. You see, when it comes to writing, my mind works in zigzags. Notes written on napkins, the weird pages on my math homework. I can never sit down and plan out my writing, the plots, the characters, anything but a planned out chart. But I had to see writing and running beyond a straight line. I had to see that running was crossing your arms as you kept running, making sure that you didn't run out of breath and pace yourself as you were running so you wouldn't end up tired before your race actually started. So eventually, January 14th came around. I thought of this part of the season as the humbled Hunger Games. You dedicated yourself to no one but the school you represented, and you would do your best so you wouldn't get discouraged to see the time it took you to run your race and the time you put in at practice. It was exhausting. I have been lucky to have plenty of mentors, both at my middle school and at PACE. But I owe all of my motivation to my high school track team coach, Coach Trammell. Coach Trammell is not only a 6-time NCAA champion and Olympic gold medalist, but he is also one of the most impactful people I've ever met in my entire life. Before every meet, Coach Trammell would meet with me, see me do strides, and watch me warm up just to make sure that I wasn't feeling anxious. And each and every time he would tell me, "It's okay, Leah, you got it." I am everlastingly grateful for it all. So it was time for our first official track meet, February 15th, 2022. I was frightened. I left my inhaler on the bus, so I just had to trick myself into having good lungs for just a couple of minutes. Just a couple of minutes. I begged my lungs practically. So I hit my strides, I warmed up, and it was time to finally get your lane and heat assignments. Lane 5, heat 4, lane 5, heat 4, lane 5, heat 4. I had to write it down on the palm of my hand just to make sure I didn't embarrass myself before I actually started running. And then lane 5, heat 4 was being called over the speakers. I was so scared, and it was time for me to set out my blocks. 1, 2, place a block. 1, 2, 3, the block won't go down. My hands began shaking, and I'm so scared. My hands are so sweaty. None of it would actually work. Oh, thank God. There's Coach Trammell. He saves my life and puts it down effortlessly. And looking in hindsight, it's so much more easier to put down blocks when your hands aren't shaking. So before I'm able to actually practice running, the official yells set. I get in my position, thumbs in, head down, go. He fires the gun, and it takes me by utter surprise. I'd been at the beat for at least 2 hours, but it takes me by a shock. Oh no, Leah, stop thinking about the running, actually run. I'm just going for it, I'm pushing, I'm stepping over, and I get to the finish line, hearing nothing but congratulations for the girl who came last. All of their pitiful congratulations were wiped out by 4 words that just repeated in my mind until the sun went down and the meet was over. I could have done better. I could have done better. I could have done better. Those 4 words echoed in my brain even when I got home, and I sat down at my desk, and I was thinking about quitting, but I couldn't. It was those 4 words on my New Year's resolutions. Don't quit track. They taunted me in the voice of my 5th grade self. Don't quit track. So I didn't. I kept running, and I kept practicing, and I went to all the practices. I put in my best effort, and I felt better. It was time for our 2nd meet of the season on March 26th. Now, I bet my thought of doing better isn't unique to myself. Any poet, athlete, student, novelist will have that same idea of perfection, and it's completely false. To get that idea out of my brain was something that I had to make sure I did before this 2nd meet. And I'm glad that I did. I hit practice strides, and I set up my blocks beforehand to make sure that I actually knew what I was doing. And then I said a quick prayer, closed my eyes, and right as I was finishing, I felt a bug on my left shoulder. The fear that radiated through my brain was indescribable. I had seen plenty of mosquitoes at the meet, so I was so scared, but when I opened my eyes, a small little ladybug sat on my shoulder. Immune, unbothered to the running high schoolers surrounding it, immune to all the anxiety that it didn't know it had just calmed. It's great to be a sprinting poet, truly, but to be a still poet, acknowledging the beauty and nature surrounding you, is an indescribable feeling that I will never forget. Just as the ladybug flew away, it was time for me to set my blocks up for real this time. 1, 2, set a block. 1, 2, 3, set a block. It actually worked this time. I was feeling so much more relieved. I didn't feel lucky. I felt prepared. I hit a practice stride, and immediately after, the official yelled set once more. My thumbs in, head down, parallel to my shoulders, go. The girls on my right were already meters ahead of me. It was unimaginable. I was so shocked. But the girl to my left was actually a couple meters ahead of me. She couldn't be that far. I'm pushing over, step over, step over, step over. I hear it in my brain in the voice of Coach Jamal, who is sitting just a couple feet away from me, silent. I'm running, I'm crossing my hands, my form is better, I have more control over my body, and we get to the finish line. I ran over to Coach Jamal, and I told him it felt so much better. My form, I had more control over my body, and I was so amazed, and I had to realize the one word I was repeating. It wasn't perfect, it was better. I don't write for my own profit. Neither do I run for my own gain. I write to leave an impact on someone's life, to make sure that someone goes home and is able to think about the words that I said, whether that be negative or positive, whether it be a story, this speech itself, or a note to a friend. When asked how he mastered the art of storytelling and writing, Garrison Keeler replied, I didn't. There is no mastery to be had. You love the attempt. You don't master a story any more than you master a river. You just feel lucky to canoe down it. There is no perfection. There's no perfect grade. There's no perfect outfit. And there's definitely no perfect flotilla boat. But there is definitely that difference in your grade after you finally try a different study method. There's that outfit you feel more confident in. And there's definitely loads of advice given to new freshmen by sophomores and upperclassmen whose boats sank on gap day. I absolutely love running and writing, and I hope to do it as long as I possibly can. But there is no perfect Google Doc, and regardless what I'm writing, where I'm running, I'm just lucky to be in my canoe going down my river. Thank you.